"Yo don't belong in this section." The words landed flat in the marble lobby of the Ashford Grand, carried just loud enough to reach the couple seated nearby on a velvet bench, who looked up with the particular stillness of people, uncertain whether to intervene or simply pretend they hadn't heard. "I'm going to have to ask you to step back to the public entrance." Adisa Nwosu had walked 43 steps from the revolving door to the private concierge desk when the duty manager planted himself in her path, arms crossed, his tone already decided before she had uttered a single syllable in response. 3 hours later, when the hotel's general manager came running from his office, with his face drained of every drop of color, Craig Norris would understand with absolute clarity what he had set in motion, and nothing inside those gleaming walls would be quite the same again. The flight from Vancouver had been delayed by an hour and 40 minutes. A turbulent crossing over the Rockies, a crowded gate at Pearson, and then the long pull of the expressway into downtown Toronto in the kind of mid-November rain that turned headlights into smears of amber and white along wet asphalt. Adisa had not changed out of the clothes she had boarded in that morning. Dark jeans, a heather gray hoodie from a charity run she had organized in Scarborough 2 summers ago, a pair of worn running shoes. Her travel bag was a canvas tote, not a branded one, just sturdy and familiar, the kind she had carried since her early 20s when she could not have afforded the alternative. There were no rings on her fingers, no watch on her wrist, nothing to announce, to anyone paying only surface attention, that the woman stepping through the revolving doors had built one of the most consequential technology companies in Canadian history from a basement apartment in a neighborhood where people did not often build such things. She had specifically requested the private concierge desk because the gala was in 4 hours and she needed a quiet check-in, a room, and 30 minutes of silence before her team descended with event briefings and last-minute adjustments. The Ashford Grand's annual technology leadership gala had been held here for 3 consecutive years. And for 3 consecutive years, Verdant Technologies had been its principal sponsor. Adisa had written the first check herself. She knew the menu, the seating plan, and the name of the sous chef, who always remembered she preferred her salmon without the cream sauce. She had stayed in room 1407 each time, a corner suite on the 14th floor with a view north across the city that she found quietly steadying whenever the pressure of the week gathered in her chest. None of this was visible to Craig Norris. He had transferred to the Ashford Grand 6 weeks earlier from a smaller property on the outskirts of Mississauga. He was 34, quick with a clipboard, and possessed of a confidence in his own judgment that had not yet been tested by any experience significant enough to humble it. He had reviewed the evening's guest list that morning in a 3-minute scan and had formed, without examining it too carefully, a general picture of what the principal sponsor of a black-tie technology gala would look like upon arrival, accompanied, polished, announced. The woman in the gray hoodie walking alone toward the private concierge desk with a canvas bag over one shoulder did not fit the picture he had constructed. His mind had reached its conclusion before she had taken her 3rd step through the door. Adisa looked at him with the calm patience of someone who had navigated this particular kind of inconvenience on a near-daily basis for 20 years, and had learned, from hard experience, that the first response was always the one that mattered most. She told him her name. She told him she had a reservation under that name, a suite on the 14th floor. She reached into her bag and withdrew her identification, a passport rather than a driver's license, because she had been out of the country the week before, presenting at a summit in Geneva, and had not yet switched back. Craig took the passport, glanced at it, and handed it back without checking the name against the reservation screen. He told her, in the tone of someone extending patience on her behalf, that this section was reserved for confirmed guests and premium members. He told her the public check-in desk was located at the main entrance on King Street. She told him again that she was a confirmed guest. She said it without heat. She had long since understood that heat only gave people like Craig Norris a reason to dismiss what came next. He told her that if she could provide a booking confirmation number, perhaps they could sort it out together. She pulled up her phone and turned the screen toward him. The confirmation email was there. Her name, her room, her arrival date, everything in clear text. He looked at it for a moment and said that he would need to verify it through his own system first, which would take a few minutes, and perhaps she would be more comfortable waiting in the lobby seating area in the meantime. The lobby seating area was 15 feet behind her, in the general public section of the entrance. It was, in every way that mattered, a polite instruction to go back to where he assumed she had come from. Adisa did not move. She told him, quietly, that she would wait at the desk while he verified. She asked for his name. He told her. She asked for his manager's name. He gave her that too, and something shifted behind his eyes when he said it. A faint recalibration, a reading of her composure that he did not know how to categorize. He turned to his terminal and began typing, slowly. Adisa stood at the private concierge desk in the lobby of her company's principal gala venue and watched the rain streak down the tall glass windows onto King Street below. A young woman at the adjoining desk, a front desk associate named Denise, who had worked the Ashford Grand for 3 years and had seen nearly everything the lobby had to offer, glanced between them with a growing discomfort she was not sure what to do with. She had recognized the name the moment Adisa had said it, had heard it at the all-staff briefing that morning, had seen the event placards in the ballroom corridor, had walked past the framed sponsor display near the event entrance not 2 hours earlier, with Verdant Technologies listed first, in the largest font. She opened her mouth once, closed it, told herself that Craig would find the reservation in the system, and it would resolve itself in another minute. It did not resolve itself. Craig looked up from his terminal and told Adisa he was not able to locate a reservation matching her details in the confirmed bookings. Adisa looked at him steadily and said that was incorrect. He said he understood her frustration, but perhaps there had been a booking error, and he would be happy to redirect her to general reservations. She told him there was no booking error. She told him she had been a guest at this property 3 times in the past 12 months, and that her name appeared on the principal sponsorship panel in the event corridor directly behind him if he cared to look. He did not look. He told her he was going to have to ask her to move back from the private desk, as it was reserved for verified guests, and he could not verify her reservation at this time. Adisa reached into her tote for her phone to call her assistant who had personally confirmed the reservation 4 days earlier and who could resolve this in under 60 seconds. Craig moved first. He stepped forward and placed his hand on her arm, just above the elbow. Not hard, not violent, the way a fist is violent, but firm enough to stop her from completing the motion, firm enough to constitute, under any reasonable reading of the situation, a physical intervention against a woman who had not raised her voice or made a single threatening movement she had walked in the 7 minutes since she had walked through the door. The lobby went quiet. Not entirely quiet. The ambient sounds of the hotel continued around them. The murmur of the bar in the far corner, the soft percussion of a luggage trolley, somewhere beyond the corridor. But the small pocket of space around the private concierge desk went still in the particular way that spaces go still when bystanders register, in their bodies before their minds, that something has crossed a line. Adisa looked down at his hand on her arm. Then she looked up at him. She did not raise her voice. She did not pull away. She did not give him the outrage he may have been bracing for, the reaction that would have let him reframe the story in his own mind as one where she was the disruption, and he was simply the man managing it. She said, in a tone so level it could have been read aloud in a boardroom without a single inflection needing to change. Take your hand off me. And then I want you to think very carefully about the next 60 seconds, because they are going to determine a great deal about your future in this building. The couple on the velvet bench were not pretending anymore. A man near the elevator bay had stopped walking entirely. Denise, at the adjoining desk, had gone perfectly still, her hand resting on her keyboard and pressing nothing, her face arranged in the expression of someone who knew exactly what was happening and had not yet found the courage to say so aloud. Craig removed his hand, but his expression did not change. He told her he was calling security. She told him to go ahead. She also called her assistant. She got through in 2 rings. She gave her assistant one instruction: find Stuart Oakes, the general manager, and tell him what was happening at the private concierge desk. Right now. Craig did not hear the call. He was already moving toward the security office at the south end of the lobby, brisk and convinced. The way a man moves when he believes the situation remains entirely under his control. The next 8 minutes were the longest of his professional career. 2 security officers arrived at the desk first. They were composed and methodical and asked Adisa a series of routine questions that she answered without hesitation. She produced her passport, her phone confirmation, and a business card, noting without bitterness that she should not have needed any of it. The officers exchanged a look that said something they did not put into words. Then the elevator at the far end of the lobby opened, and Stuart Oakes stepped out. He was 61 years old, silver-haired, and had managed hotel properties across 4 countries before settling in Toronto for what he described as his final chapter. He had been general manager of the Ashford Grand for 7 years. He had worked alongside Verdant Technologies as the event partner for 3 of them, and in that time had spoken with Adisa Nwosu on no fewer than 4 occasions, at the pre-event briefing the first year, twice by phone during contract renewals, and once over breakfast in this very lobby when she had arrived early and he had been passing through. He knew her face the way you know the face of someone whose name appears on a contract worth more than your annual operating budget. The color left his face so quickly that Denise, watching from her desk, later said it looked as though someone had opened a valve somewhere. Stuart crossed the lobby in a straight line, bypassing Craig entirely, and stopped in front of Adisa with his hands clasped and his head lowered by a fraction that read, to everyone present, as unambiguous. He said her name. He apologized before she asked him to. He said he did not have adequate words for what she had been subjected to in the past several minutes, and he meant it in the way that people mean things when they understand the full dimension of what they are saying. Adisa looked at him for a moment. Then she said that she appreciated that, and that she would like to continue this conversation somewhere private after she had checked in. Stuart turned toward Craig Norris with the measured composure of a man who had spent 4 decades managing the distance between what he felt and what a professional setting permitted him to show. He said Craig's name once. That was all. The expression that accompanied it said the rest. Craig went very still. In the private meeting room off the lobby, 30 minutes later, Adisa sat across from Stuart and 2 members of the hotel's management team and said what she had come to say. She was not there to end Craig Norris's career, she told them, though she had every legitimate reason to request exactly that. She was there because what had happened to her in the lobby that evening had happened to others in the same lobby on other evenings, in subtler forms that did not end with a hand on someone's arm, in forms that left no visible mark and generated no security footage and produced no moment dramatic enough to reach a general manager's attention. She knew this because one of her company's junior executives, a young black man named Femi, had stayed at this property 3 months earlier and had filed a complaint with the front desk about being redirected to the public entrance, despite holding a confirmed premium booking. The complaint had been logged and closed without any documented follow-up or resolution. She placed the printed email exchange on the table between them. She said she was not there for one apology. She expected a full external review of the property's check-in protocols, a mandatory retraining program for all client-facing staff, and a transparent process for following up on discrimination complaints. one that resulted in documented action within a defined window, not quiet archiving and institutional forgetting. She said she would be watching. What Adisa did not say in that meeting, and chose to let others discover for themselves, was the particular dimension of what Craig Norris had done that evening. He had physically obstructed the founder and majority shareholder of Verdant Technologies, the company whose software platform ran the Ashford Grand's entire digital infrastructure. The reservation system Craig had used to tell her she was not in the database. The payment processing that handled every room charge and restaurant transaction. The digital access system governing the guest room keys, the service elevator, and the staff entry terminals. All of it built on Verdant's architecture. All of it operating under a renewal agreement that sat on Adisa's desk, awaiting her signature. The hotel's parent company learned this from their legal team the following morning. The call to Stuart Oakes lasted 11 minutes. Craig Norris was suspended from duty that evening, pending a formal review. He sat in the parking garage below the hotel for a long time before he drove home, turning the encounter over in his mind and finding no version of it that didn't lead back to the same moment. The moment he had looked at a woman in a gray hoodie and decided, without evidence, without inquiry, without the basic courtesy of a completed thought, that she did not belong where she was standing. He had built his certainty on an absence, the absence of what he expected wealth and authority to look like, and had mistaken that absence for proof of something it proved nothing about at all. His contract was not renewed. The story did not remain private for long. It rarely does, in the age of lobby cameras and bystanders who carry phones and a sufficient sense of something being wrong. The footage, retrieved from the hotel's own security system, a system built and maintained by Verdant Technologies, was reviewed internally, and eventually shared with the reporters who began appearing outside the property on the third day after the incident. Adisa declined all interviews that week. She issued a single statement through her communications team, short and precise, directing attention not toward herself, but toward the pattern the incident represented. The 1,000 quieter versions of it that happened in lobbies and corridors and public spaces across the country, in forms too routine to generate footage and too ordinary to reach anyone who could change anything. The story ran on national broadcast that evening and again the morning after. The conversation that spread from it was less about the specific incident than about what the incident named. People began saying it aloud. The redirected entrances, the unverified suspicions, the complaints filed and forgotten, the dignity withheld and never quite returned. A government minister left a message with her office. A coalition of hospitality industry associations requested a meeting. A major retailer asked whether Verdant's training resources could be adapted for their own staff development program. She said yes to fewer than a third of the requests. She was not interested in becoming the face of a moment. She was interested in what the moment could build. In January, she participated in the development of a new industry-wide hospitality protocol on equitable service, working alongside hotel associations, civil liberties organizations, and 2 provincial human rights commissions. The protocol established, for the first time in clear contractual language, a standard of conduct for all client-facing staff that included mandatory third-party reporting channels for complaints and a required response timeline, measured in days, not quarters. She did not ask that the protocol bear her name. She asked that it be named for Femi, the young executive whose complaint had been logged and forgotten months before her own. She felt that his experience, unwitnessed and unanswered, was more representative of the problem than hers had been. He had not had the leverage of a contract renewal on his desk. He had had only the complaint itself, which had not been enough. The protocol was adopted by 47 hotel properties across Ontario and British Columbia within 8 months. Denise, the front desk associate, who had recognized Adisa's name in the lobby and had not spoken, requested a meeting with her company's HR department the week after the incident. She reported what she had witnessed, including the detail of her own silence, the moment she had opened her mouth and closed it and told herself it would resolve itself. She did not know if the admission would cost her the position she had held for 3 years. It did not. It was folded into the internal review as a significant data point about what workplace culture asks of junior staff when a superior is behaving badly in plain sight. Denise was later invited to contribute to the design of the new staff reporting protocol, specifically the section on what to do when the problem is someone who outranks you in the room. She took the work seriously in the way that people take work seriously when they understand precisely what it would have changed if someone had done it differently. Stuart Oakes remained in his role. He restructured the hotel's guest services team, required that every duty manager shadow a senior hospitality professional for their first 60 days on a new property, and personally reviewed every incident report filed at the private concierge desk for the following year. He held the failure without excuse, which was not easy and considerably more useful than the alternative. In March, Adisa drove to the Ashford Grand on a Tuesday evening with no event scheduled and no appointment made. She went alone, in the same gray hoodie, carrying the same canvas tote. She walked through the revolving door and approached the private concierge desk. The associate on duty was someone she did not recognize, new to the property, recently trained under the revised onboarding program, 2 months into the role. He looked up when she approached, made eye contact, and greeted her by name before she had produced any identification at all. She had been enrolled in the hotel's guest recognition system since her first stay 3 years earlier. The associate had seen her profile when the door sensor registered her entry. He had followed procedure: confirm, greet, assist, no assumption, no barrier, no decision made before the full picture was in front of him. The simple, unremarkable mechanics of treating a guest like a guest, offered without condition and without the prior establishment of her worthiness to receive it. She thanked him. He nodded and handed her the room key. She took the elevator to the 14th floor and stood at the window of room 1407 for a few minutes, looking north across the city. The lights of Toronto spread out in the dark below, the same view she had found quietly steadying since the first time she had stayed here. Scarborough was somewhere out there, in the middle distance, past the lit corridors of the expressway, past the neighborhoods that did not appear in the hotel brochures. She had grown up in a building with a broken elevator and a community mailbox that was always overfull, in a household where the word billionaire applied to other people's lives entirely. People who existed on television screens and in newspaper headlines, and nowhere proximate to her mother's kitchen table. She thought about what she had said at Toronto Metropolitan University the previous month, when a young woman in the second row had asked whether she had ever considered simply absorbing the incident at the Ashford Grand, filing it away, moving forward, letting the hotel manage its own affairs. She had told the room that silence was always the easier architecture, that it was load-bearing, silence. It held up a great deal of bad practice very efficiently, because it required nothing from anyone. Every person who had ever stayed quiet in a room where something wrong was happening had contributed one more brick to that structure, usually without meaning to, usually because the cost of speaking felt immediate and the benefit felt abstract. She had told them that speaking was not always loud. Sometimes speaking was a single sentence in a meeting, a formal complaint with a timestamp, a protocol submitted to an industry association, a name on a document that redirected attention away from yourself and toward the person the system had failed before you, and more quietly and without recourse. The student had thanked her, and Adisa had understood, from the quality of that thanks, that it would not be forgotten quickly. She stood at the window a while longer, watching a light aircraft blink its slow and steady way across the dark above the city. The gala was scheduled for next month. Her name was on the sponsorship panel again. The sous chef had already confirmed the salmon. Nothing about the room had changed. Everything about what she carried into it had. She set her tote on the chair by the window and sat down on the edge of the bed and allowed herself for one brief moment to simply be still. Not composed for any audience, not building toward anything. Just a woman in a gray hoodie in a hotel room in Toronto who had done something worth doing, and who understood that the work was not finished, and who was, for this one, unhurried at all, not yet required to prove it to anyone at all.